Hi, Nigel.
Hello.
I've got an issue that I am sure you're going to be able to help me with. I work with some fantastic people, really experienced, loads of great skills to share, but they don't have the ticket that is going to lead them on to bigger and greater things. So in New Zealand we have the National Qualifications Framework, but that involves lots of time studying, sitting formal exams or getting a formal qualification, and it doesn't really suit for lots of people. So we've all heard about badges. Do you think that has something to offer to these people who have the experience, have the years behind them, but don't have a formal qualification?
Yeah, it's a common problem. I think a lot of people find that they're kind of not credentialed as they go through their career. They've got loads of experience, they've done a huge amount, but they've got nothing really to prove it. So, you know, a LinkedIn bio isn't necessarily the only thing that will cut the mustard.
That's right.
Let's just talk about a badge for a minute, about what it is. I think when you call them badges, they look like things that sit on your chest just as a I am qualified, and people go, well, how can that be worth anything? You know, I can go and buy 10 badges anywhere and just stick them on my lapel. It doesn't mean anything. The truth is that the notion of badge is actually much more complicated than the word suggests. Like if you take one of the badges, the Mozilla badges that we're talking about, you take one of those and you unpack it, it's actually multi-layered. So that with it, it's a little bit of software, and badge is as good a word as any, maybe not a brilliant word, but what it is in those layers is a statement of capability, so that each badge can be designed by a workplace or by an industry or by a supplier, and in it are embedded a number of competencies, the level at which the person has succeeded in them, and any other commentary. So it's like a kind of mini portfolio, so that when you have that badge and you give it to your employer, and it's yours, it doesn't belong to your employer, when you give it to another employer or you give it to anyone else, they can kind of deconstruct it and see what the value is attached to that single item. So the notion of having a portable portfolio that you can take with you all the way through your workplace, that gets more complicated and more extensive as you go, but has got international credibility. It says what you can do rather than you just saying I can do it, or you've got some complicated framework that you've got to spend time with that sometimes you just can't do it. You just don't have the time to do all that. It's a kind of interesting middle road. Now, is it working? Is it successful? We don't know yet. The notion is fully thought through. Early badges are around, but as something that employers respect, that individuals can be proud of, and that really cuts the mustard, I don't think we're quite there yet. But my advice to anybody is give it a go. It's actually a pretty straightforward process, and if there is one employer that wants to do it, or one supplier that wants to do it, or even a community of interest, a community that is working in a particular area, want to do it, then give it a go and see whether it works in the marketplace.
Because the value of it must be in the eye of the beholder. It's like a two-way transaction, isn't it? So do we need to have a critical mass before this will really take off?
I don't think so. I think what it needs to do is prove itself in a kind of two-way street. So exactly what you've said, you've got to have an employer and an individual. But it might be a very specialist area to start with. It may be only 30 people in the whole of New Zealand. But those 30 people have that credibility based on the badge. So I think it needs to start somewhere. And if we all sit back and say, let's wait for it to happen, that's going to be really, really difficult because nothing will happen. So my suggestion would be give it a go. With 30 people, you've not lost very much, but it could be the beginning of something that in 10 years' time we'll look back and say, wow, that was really the starting point of a transformation in qualifications.
So it might be the end of the National Qualifications Framework.
It could be, yes indeed. It could be linked to it. So you've got something portable. There's no reason why you couldn't do that. It could be embedded within it so that it manifests itself out of a national qualification, or it could be standalone. It doesn't really matter. But the whole point is that the badge is not a single flat shiny disc. It's actually a multi-layered, complex piece of information. It's a document really that tells you a lot about the individual.
That's great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.